We can hear you. Oh, I won't speak. You speak.
Okay, we should be live.
Oh, are we live
So,
on the internet? Amazing.
yeah, we are live on the internet.
Hello,
Uh,
everyone. Welcome to the Polish Nationals live stream.
Hello and welcome.
We are going to be covering the games today. My name is Dan Tripp. I am from Push the Point, and I'm joined by Sharif. Sharif, you are not of Push the Point, but it sometimes feels
I,
like you kind of are.
I like to think of myself as an honorary push to point
Yeah,
person. Uh,
you have the
Hi
hat
everyone.
now.
I do have the hat. Hi everyone. My name is Sharif or Shin on Discord. I'm just aware that my mic is being picked up way more than yours, so I'm gonna try to lower that.
Yeah, and I can move mine a little bit closer. So if there's any audio issues, do let us know in the chat. We can see the chat, so we can attempt to do what we can. But the stream is being hosted all the way over in Poland, so it will be a. There may not be immediate updates, but we can obviously take that on board for the future games.
And
And we,
we should shout out Mariusz, the player on the right, who organized this stream and has just been a big part of the Polish community all along. First player to reach 1,000 XP, second place in last year's Polish Nats, and also a content creator.
Yeah, and it was very nice of him to ask us to co-commentate. Essentially, we it's something that we've always wanted to do on Push the Point, and I think I managed to get involved with the French nationals last year. And Sharif, you did some stuff as well, didn't you, last year at the national
I
tournament?
did get to co-commentate the Belgian nationals. That was a lot of fun. Uh, But yeah, it's nice to actually cast with you again. It's been a while since we've been on something other than playing games for 5 hours
Yeah, me and Sharif have still managed to not ever play each other in a real
in
life
person.
competitive tournament, despite playing each other probably close to 100 times during the Blitz season, the great XP race of 2021, I believe you could refer to it as. I quickly dropped off that as as Shin was very dedicated to the cause of 1,000 XP, while I was not so dedicated.
Anyways, I
So
think we
yeah, we've
maybe
got a game here, haven't we? We've got
yeah.
I assume we've got, we got Icelander versus Oldham. This is a well, settle in, everyone, but it should be a good one. The icy heroes up against each other. Shin, have you ever played Oldham or Icelander in CC? Have you ever toyed with either of these heroes?
I have tried aggro Oldhim. I'm not smart enough for control Oldhim, and I've tried playing some Icelander just because she's such a disruptive hero when she came out, and it sounded like such a cool concept to try out. But we already see some of the um, important choices being made at this stage, such as the Oldham player going on the sledge, while the Icelander player goes on the Kraken, um, which
Is that
is, if I remember,
a Goliath gauntlet I see on the Icelander player as well?
oh, very interesting. It is a Goliath gauntlet. I think there might be an assumption that the Oldham player is going to go control, in
Mm.
which case having the Goliath gauntlet as a way to make your nourishing emptiness really big makes sense. Even though looking at the hand of Mariusz, we actually see a few attacks. There's the ice attack, which name I forget. Um,
Something that could be a command and conquer as well. I didn't quite catch it from the hand, but had a reddish tinge, which is not a common color in an Icelander deck. So I'm very interested to see if that is indeed a command and conquer, and obviously that would work very well with the Goliath Gauntlet. And but I imagine the Odin's not going to be running a huge number of defense reactions. It might be forced to run a couple just because of deck limitations against the arcane heroes. So we'll see
mhm.
if that lines up well for the Icelander to push through some big damage. But Takes a couple of damage just from the sledge there. And I believe channel, sorry, lake, the lake, the icy lake. It's very early, guys. Is out on the field as well. And there we go, straight in with the CNC turn one. And we've got some beautiful dice here to help represent damage, which is very, very helpful.
Indeed.
On a pummel. What?
This is, I believe this might be the famous Pomo Icelander that some people have talked about.
Now this is something. I also see the unmovable pitch there from the Icelander, so clearly got some defensive bulk as well. But that's going to be a lot of possibly quite clunky cards in the Icelander deck. So we'll have to see if it all lines up how they want it. But it is going to go through. Obviously, the Oldham just crowns away the Arsenal when they see the CNC. So no discard from the Arsenal, but does get the hit on the pummel and loses a card from hand. But yeah, Oldham already
Still
down
very early
1 health.
games, though. Still very early games. I think we should also quickly introduce Polish Nats. I believe they have 94 players today, and a lot of strong player in the rooms. We have PT finalists, PT top 8, calling finalists. I think we might even have some calling winners. So a lot of good FAB players in one room. And a camera that's failing.
Elgato has crashed. We are getting some technical support.
This is a good thing.
Very fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a completely the stream is being set up and run from Poland, but it should be able to switch it back on relatively easy. And while we're waiting, I can continue to drink my my second coffee of the morning because I can't function without it. So it's not that early here in the UK. It's only an hour earlier than Poland. They started at around 9:15. It's about 8:20 here in the UK. Obviously, we've already had our nationals, and it's still ticking through.
It's restarting.
So we might miss a couple of turns here. The Icelander is taking what appears to be a sledge hit. It's like, I think that was probably a half block there, taking the sledge. Or it must have been a 2 block. See, this is where the real true casting comes out. Because we can tell what's going on even just by the damage taking.
So do you think he blocked? Well, actually, a lot of his cards that we saw so far blocked for 2, so that makes sense. Probably gave 1 card, kept 3, and his arsenal.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any instant shenanigans yet happen from the Icelander side, have we?
No, I guess if they're running, pummels and things, and maybe not quite the resources to do the dinks with the Kraken. The Oldham players probably going to be able to work around the Kraken relatively easily because the Icelander is attacking.
You say this, but I remember shockingly the Kraken being very annoying to deal with when we tested it. So just to remind people, Kraken is 1 arcane damage. If it hits, draw a card. And there's just very weird timings with Icelander, which you can have a lot of things going on in a row, and then just Kraken at the end of your chain or at a stage where they don't maybe have anything floating anymore. And pretty much in that case, you force the opponent to either pitch an extra card to just block 1, which in Guardian, the card they're pitching is most likely a blue. Or then they allow you to draw and you can kind of get your arsenal again or extend your turn further.
Yeah,
So Kraken is a very interesting card, but we haven't seen it be very adopted by a lot of the Icelander players.
because it's an interesting kind of synergy, I believe, because if you are attacking with physical attacks as the Icelander, I suppose there's a much higher chance that the Oldhim's gonna crown of seeds, and maybe have a few resources floating. But it's something the Icelander player has clearly made a conscious choice to run the Kraken, is gonna use it the most sensible way to like you said,
Oh,
Sharif, at the end of the chain. And yeah, you seeing Simon's comment in the chat.
yes. Simon Denning of Also Push the Point fame, who will be joining us on stream later today, pointing out that Kraken is actually draw a card for each damage done this way. So if you can boost Kraken, you can draw way more than one card. Um,
Yeah, I'm not sure what ways there are currently to boost arcane damage from the staffs, the staves or whatever they are. Um,
damage.
we've
Okay.
lost the video feed, but
I think that also means that we've lost the stream hearing us.
possibly.
Oh no, I can still hear us on the live. So we can still see live. So now we're commenting with delay as well as no feed of
Well, we
the
can turn
cards.
the we can do a impromptu push the point Sharif interview to cover the time.
Then we have cameras back on stream. We actually see the Goliath Gauntlet being popped to play Ice Fang, and that being blocked by the Oldhim player. Um, and we see a lot of damage having been dealt by both sides so early on in this game, um, which is kind of uncommon for Ice heroes. But I guess Oldhim recently has been a lot more aggro, especially in Swiss rounds. Um,
Do you think
and we just have.
do you think the game will slow down, Shin? Like it's been quite a explosive and aggressive start, like you said. Do you think we're gonna see this exchange of weapons and attacks? But once we get to the lower life totals, do you think we'll see the Icelander start to turtle up a bit, or the Olden player start to just block everything out? Because the Icelander is giving up a lot of cards to push the damage through, while the Olden player is just pitching two and swinging sledge every turn. They're definitely going to win a long drawn out battle. So it's an
Mhm.
interesting one.
No, I 100% agree with you. Uh, it's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be very difficult here for the Icelander because even when you have attacks, Oldhim really, can defend very efficiently, and then obviously is running the AB3 with Crown, so it's definitely an uphill battle. It feels for Icelander here because Sledge also presents 6 damage a turn against a deck that has a lot of two blocks. Um, but it'll be interesting to see maybe a good use of Coronet Peak to kind of bother the Oldhim player. And we see Kraken being used for what I think is the first time this game, but we did have a moment where the cameras went dark. And we see Crown being activated to block that. That makes sense. Um,
Crown is, I guess, just a really good way to shut down that one arcane from the Kraken. And it's not
mhm.
something that Oldhim is going to feel particularly threatened by, to be honest. They're very happy to crown, as many as people know who've played against Oldhim. That's not something they have to worry about too much. We do see the channel.
And we see a CNC. Which is an interesting card against Icelander. I have still to decide whether it's good or bad against them. Obviously, because they can instant away their arsenal. But against this Icelander deck, it might be a bit harder for him to instant away if he's running a lot more blue attacks
Yeah, I
or
think
ice
this is gonna
attacks.
be quite effective. Yeah, what I think the Oldham player is seeing the way the Icelander is playing, um,
Hmm.
thinking that Icelander's gonna love to put a pummel in there. Even, the Oldham might have even seen the unmovable pitch, thinking maybe I actually even hit a defense reaction here. This is gonna be an interesting one. And just 2 blocks as well, where, the pummels are 2 blocks. There's a chance here that, the Icelander doesn't really have any equipment that they're willing to give up. Maybe the hat, but I think we are gonna see, yeah, it's quite fortunate that we get does have the blue card in Arsenal, so well played by the Icelander thinking, or at least well Arsenal by the Icelander there. And that's gonna really dent the effectiveness of this command and conquer.
It's still 6 damage, and the Icelander took a lot of damage early on here. So, you don't want to go down. I was going to say you don't want to go down to 16, but obviously the Icelander disagrees with me and decides to go down to 16. Uh, he might feel that he needs a big hand to swing back the tempo, which makes sense. Icelander does have some pretty crazy card with Freezing Point or Ice Eternal that incentivizes them to keep full hands and try to do such a big tempo swing in one turn. Um, One thing I'm wondering is if we saw any Frost Hexes. Am I remembering wrong in that a Frost Hex might have been pitched by Icelander, or did I just or used to block?
I haven't seen one myself. I think that it's gonna be an interesting one to get that card out on the field with the life totals as they are now. The Icelander
Hmm.
is now down to 16, right? Taking the damage to get, like, even one Frost Hex out now is gonna be, very difficult. It's a 2-card hand without an Arsenal. It's a 3-card hand if you wanted an Arsenal. I guess you can play it from the Arsenal, but that's risky if the Oldhim is gonna put any pressure on. And here again, we
Hmm.
see the Kraken, and I guess, yeah, we're just gonna
Pitch to Crown.
crown.
Happily pitch to Crown as well. Even though now Crown costs 2, you're still very happy to do it. And we have an E-Strike. 5 go again. Um,
I'm a little bit behind you, Shin, because I'm having to watch the live stream on the live stream, just because I've lost the recording on the Discord channel we're on. But I will try and
that's
keep up as best I can. But it's good to
that's
hear.
fine.
It's good to have this future sight from Shin of being like, "Oh, the strike is coming." I'm like, "Oh, exciting!"
I'm just predicting the plays.
Yeah,
And then we have
you're
a
so good. It's like,
and
wow,
then we
he
have a
really is reading
coronet
minds.
peak being used for the first time. Uh,
Yeah, I really like this. I like this
and
E-Strike 5 go again into peak. I think that's
mhm.
nice, but again, it just lines up very well for the Oldham because of the 2 cost the of the crown, leaving the 1 resource that just then covers that coronet peak.
But it does let you keep the channel mount for channel Lake Frigid,
Yeah, and that
which
is
is
doing
very
well.
relevant. Mm. And the Odin player is at 21. Life totals are actually very close.
Yeah,
And while Icelander is not Kano, she can still bring a lot of instant damage out of nowhere. Now, whether that will work against Oldhim and AB3 with Heart of Ice is debatable, but it is definitely a threat that can't be ignored. For example, right there, Oldham actually pitches his whole hand to Thunder. Is it Thunderquake? I believe it's
is it
Thunderquake.
yeah, it looks like it. I believe that's a red Thunderquake as well. Hard to see. I believe
Um,
it is. Which is quite an aggressive card, but I like to
yeah,
see it. Um,
and therefore opening himself to all instant damage that Icelander wants to do. I believe he probably went with the Thunderquake because Icelander didn't have an arsenal, so he felt quite safe that if Icelander went for instant damage, she would need to pop her boots and really uh, overextend herself. uh,
And
which
we're seeing a
isn't.
pummel pitched as well from the Oldham here, and I guess that's showing the power of the Lake Frigid here, forcing the additional resource needed to play the Thunderquake because it's now costing 7/6. It means that the Oldham player is denied an Arsenal and can't, and a really
Mhm.
good Arsenal at that. That pummel could easily close out a game now that the Icelander is so down on life. So yeah, channel, because I was going to say earlier that I'm not seeing the huge effect of the Lake here because of Oldham's sort of, he's pitching 2 blues for the hammer anyway with 2 resources. He's able to crown for 2. But I suppose that lake here is denying an Arsenal and denying resources from the Oldhim, so that if the Icelander tries to do some damage here, it should hopefully go through. But again, very hard for the Icelanders to do damage with no Arsenal.
And the Icelander going into Think Tank, it's a lot of damage, decides to take it all. 10 damage to face, goes
That's
down
a,
to 6.
that's a huge hit.
Uh, and with no instant on their turn. And the Oldham draws up.
That's a lot of damage. You know, it's literally more than a quarter of the Icelanders' total health because they start on 36. It's a big life deficit. And yeah, could have
E
been
strike
worse.
for 5, go again. Um, I think I saw a blizzard in the hand of um, the Icelander player, so maybe he had a lot of 2 blocks and a lot of cards that didn't block, and therefore, yeah, that is a lot of 2 blocks, definitely, as the chat is pointing out.
Hmm.
So maybe he just felt that he could give his whole hand and just block 6 or 9 and still like not do anything much, and then Oldham can come up with an Oaken Old Fuse or something ridiculous on the next turn. But Ice Fang is actually quite a fun card here because Ice Fang, if you hit, I believe you either need to pay or discard, and Oldham didn't have an arsenal. He doesn't have much armor, and we just saw his only piece of armor go. So 4 was actually a threatening um, breakpoint for an on-hit effect. And
Yeah,
now
we're going to
that
see the Heart of Ice. Yeah, for that.
and now that Icelander's on 6, Sledge for 6 threatens lethal every turn. So it is definitely an uphill battle, but the Oldham is on 15. It's not impossible for the Icelander to swing with a very big turn. The Oldham is keeping 1 card, but is now AB2 with a crown and nothing in arsenal this turn. So depending, we've seen a few instant and wizard cards in the Icelander deck. So depending on what else is in there, such as an Ice Eternal maybe or a Freezing Point, there are things that can be done.
I think the
And we
Icelander
see.
needs to respect these sledges and fully block them out. Going down to 3 when you know your opponent is running red pummel is a very risky play, but I don't think he does it. I think he does take the damage. I think this is going to be very difficult. I mean, we missed a few turns. Maybe we've actually seen all red pummels pitched, played at this point. I'm not sure that's the
Mhm.
case. It's going to be tough for the Icelander to bring this back from here.
And now we see a very classical Icelander play with
Yeah.
Ether Ice Vein for 5 arcane, and if it hits, pay 2 or discard a card. So once Oldham went down to AB2, it now becomes very difficult for him to block this. It was actually very difficult for him to block it on AB3 in the first place, but Oasis Respite or anything really helps on this front. But if he doesn't have the Oasis, this can be a very disruptive turn because it forces a couple of pitches out of the hand. Uh,
Mm.
and here the Oldham decides to discard. And then you have the power of Kraken, right? Kraken is saying, give me 1 more card or let me arsenal something.
But I think
Um,
you can, because we know that the red frost hex is the fuse. We know.
it
Oh,
was
he
a
does.
Frost Fang.
Oh, is it a
It was
frost
a
fang?
blue.
Sorry. I meant
Yeah, it
Frostbite
was
in
a
the
blue
blue one.
Frostfang. Yeah, and he pitched it for Kraken.
It's quite telegraphed, but he should hope the yeah. It's an interesting one because he took the damage. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I can see it.
But the
Oh,
Oldhim
nice.
comes back with a 5 go again? Or maybe it's 7. We don't have the go again tag,
I
so
think
maybe
it's
we
gonna
should
have
assume
to
it's
be
7.
7 because he's not going to be able to hammer with one card at the 4 cost.
That is
So,
very true.
but a 7 in a set coming in for 7 when the opponent is on 3, and you know that they run 2 blocks. You know the what. So you don't know the card in Arsenal, but it's probably going to take 2 cards out of their hand here, and it's a really good way for Oldham to you keep a card for Arsenal. Like they kept 2 blues and swung sledge. There's no Arsenaling here, but this will mean that the Oldhams will have access to Crown and AB2 next turn, which is going to be really
Mhm.
nice for them. Get full value out of that pitch if the Icelander player does come in with some damage. And it's a really tricky.
But
You can
the
see a
Oldhim player is on
pummel.
10 life, you know? If you keep blocking out as Icelander, there might be a turn where you get to use your boots.
And we actually do see in hand for the Icelander a pummel, I believe. Um, This is where you, in your hand as the Icelander player, you can see a win. You can see that if only I could just keep this hand, I can see a win, but I can't. I have
Mhm.
to. I have to give up away these cards that I want to keep so much. I mean, the
And he
Icelander
is
still has
considering
2
giving his
blocks.
Coronet peak. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
um,
an armor block right there.
there's 3 block from the Icelander that they could commit. That 3 block will at some point allow them to 1 card block a sledge and live, though. So it's a big ask to give, but at this stage, if if the Icelander player thinks they have the win, just because of these life totals, it's really tricky. Can't just throw all the armor at it and live. Always has to give up a card. It's just how many cards will they have to give up? How much armor will they have to give up here to just the power of E-Strike. Such an old card, but at the end of the day, 2 cards coming in for 7 with the flexibility of E-Strike is such a powerful tool.
It's always funny to me to look at the history of some of these cards that are staples. Because when we started playing, I remember E-Strike was not as good as CNC, and arguably is still not as good as CNC, but it just wasn't as commonly played. And it might have been because it was all blitz or stuff, but we've definitely seen a big resurgence or a big surge of E-Strikes recently, and such a good card now. It's a staple in so many decks.
I think it's the draw in the
Hmm.
access of heroes that can give cards go again that shouldn't have go again. And we even saw this in George Roger. Sorry, he gets annoyed when you call him George Rogers because it's not his name. Phi deck running soaring strike, I believe it is the draconic that if it hits, you give a card go again. Um, so when you give East Strike go again and you draw a card from it, it's effectively a cycle and a 0 cost 5. It's so good, right? Fix a hand,
Sorry,
0 5 go again.
sorry, then. So we did see a block for 5 and Icelander going down to 1, and then come back with, is it Icy Pursuit?
Yep.
Um,
Icy Encounter is the card.
Thank you, Icy Encounter. Um, And this is now a very tough spot for the Icelander. Being down to 1 is. Oh, and we have the camera go back off.
No, not
I
for
was
the
gonna say,
end.
being down to 1 against Oldham is terrifying, but it might be a case of Icelander trying to really set up an instant endgame here. Because Oldham is on 10, that's not a lot of life points to play with. Um,
Yeah, we know Icelander can do proper damage. You know, if they
Mhm.
get you to a point and then they can set up an arsenal and they can set up a kill. And the Icelander player does have Storm Striders. That is going to allow them to go above and beyond the kind of like Icelander of draft. You know, that kill range that is dramatically increased by Storm Striders. I've just not been
Mhm.
seeing the cards that I'd want to see for Storm Striders being blocked with or being pitched by the Icelander so far. There was
I
some there
I
was some
think
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
sorry, I was gonna say I think the Oldham player full blocked this attack, and now Icelander drew up, and then Oldham came with a sledge. I believe he decided to take the calculated approach, not requiring to really do anything drastic, right? And we see the 2 card block from Icelander, just needing to respect the 6 damage here. If they don't, they die. Um, so we're
Yeah.
in the very tense section of the game right now.
Yeah, we can't see the board state, but I think uh it's a very likely conclusion that the Oldham swung sledge. It's pretty much what you would expect. And it just puts on so much pressure, like Shin's saying, like, you know, if the Icelander's got a 2 block in hand or even a couple of 2 blocks, that really limits what cards they're able to block with. He still had the tunic, but he probably really needs that tunic to pop off with Storm Striders. um, it's going to be an interesting one to see if we see a dink on the Oldham. So that makes me think that there's definitely been some kind of Kraken action going on. Because the Oldham, you know, is probably committing the resources needed. Actually, if the Oldham's, maybe it was a red and a blue that they pitched for Sledge.
And we see the Oldham come down to 6 right now. Um, Very tense game.
Yeah, we will try and correct some of the streaming issues for the follow-up games. Um, obviously the a few technical difficulties, but it is game one of the day. We will try and resolve as much as we can. Personally, I'm having
And
quite fun predicting what the actual plays are from just seeing their faces of the players, which we can still see.
I know if you see the Icelander whinge at one point, it might be because of a pummel.
Mm.
Um, I think did that actually happen? Uh, I wonder if a pummel was played. Maciek put down a card very strongly there, so I couldn't decide if it was a block or a pummel. Oh no, it was he's blocking. Okay, never mind. Um, and he takes an extra damage, and yeah, and then the Icelander player dies. So I think actually Maciek must have been on the attack, and Icelander struggled with a few blocks and tried to push damage at instant speed, but Maciek might have had the pummel. Um, that is what I'm reading from the player's camera.
Yeah,
Uh,
welcome to Talk Sport Fab Edition. If anyone's from the UK, it's a radio station that covers sport, everything you love about sport, but not the visuals. Yeah, thanks for your patience, everyone. Yeah, I see the comments
there we go.
and in the chat. It looks like, unfortunately, the Icelander couldn't take it home. We will try and work on the camera for the next game. It was actually a surprisingly fast game for a Oldham Icelander. Oh, and the camera appears again. Perfect. Oh, that's good. So yeah, looks like take a read. There was an unmovable, probably an unmovable, making that hand pretty awkward for
Hmm.
the for the Icelander player. But it was an aggressive game, a fun game actually for to watch from the beginning. The sort of Oldhams, and it's not what I expected to see when I saw Oldham Icelander sit down next to each other. But I love the aggressive play style of the Icelander. I love the pummels, and I love the early game of CNC and pummel and pushing a lot of damage on that Oldham.
I mean, it almost feels like we see Oasis Respite coming out of
Oh,
the
is that in
Oldham
the
deck.
Arsenal? Oh, in the deck was it? So it did have that coverage, but to be honest, the ice. I'd love to see
And
the.
Icelander had pummels. We see Icelander also revealing his deck with pummels. Um, Icy Encounter Pummel was the play he wanted to keep in his hand, I believe, is what's being said at this stage.
I love it.
Uh,
Look at these cards. They're just exactly what I want to see in an Icelander deck. Completely turning your opponent's expectations on its head. You're thinking, oh, he's going to try. It's an Icelander going to set up frost hexes. I'm going to sideboard my deck with that in mind. And then no, the Icelander turns around and starts pummeling you. I just love the idea of Icelander picking up a big old hammer and hitting you in the face. But yeah, I did enjoy that game. It looks like the camera is set back up again, which is great. Um,
mhm.
we are got two more games of C's Classic Constructed this morning for you. This is I said this in a tweet, but think the Polish scene is probably the most competitive of all the scenes in Flesh and Blood at the moment. Is that a take you would agree with, Sharif?
I mean, when you look at the player list we were given and their accomplishments so far, it's very hard to disagree, right? Um, I mean, do you just want to go through some of the players in the room? We have a lot of PT finalists, a lot of PT top eight, and just top 16 or top 8 at calling events, winning some battle hardened events, just a lot of very strong players. And I believe they were also quite strong in other card games, uh, some of which I haven't played, so I'm not sure of their pedigree from there. But you do hear whenever someone from another card game jumps into Fab, they kind of bring a lot of their experience. And I feel just like Poland was very representative in a lot of TCGs. So definitely a lot of very good players in one room and very intense nationals.
And I think the most important part is that the Team Poland jersey is incredibly stylish, and I think they're probably the best looking team on the floor of any pro tour. You know, Sunflower
Definitely.
Samurais have a good look now. It's the swag game is is rising. We've got to improve. We got to get a Team Britain shirt or jersey because man, those guys look good. Uh, we're just tidying up here. Big thanks to everyone joining us in the chat. Hello to Jotrick of Talashar and Tortimi as well. Got some great names in the chat already. We are probably going to be moving on to game two in a little bit. That game went a little bit fast, but we will probably try and look at the technical issues with the stream, but you can rely on
Mhm.
us to provide the audio experience that you want here on the Polish Nationals live stream. So
We will also hopefully get the meta breakdown towards the middle of round two, and we'll discuss that with you and see what the Polish nationals actually has cooked up and what decks they bring and what's most valued there.
yeah, I'd love to see some really spicy decks. We've already been blessed with a great spicy deck already from this Icelander, and I think the more the merrier. That's what I say. I want to see Pummel Briar. That's what I want to see today. Uh,
Uh, And we do have the camera back in our stream room, so there will be no more delay for Dan. I
Yeah,
won't
I just
be.
need to leave and rejoin. So I will be right back so I can get that stream up.
Uh, yeah, a break is fine. I think we're just gonna move on to the break between round one, and we'll be back soon for round two.
Don't worry, we were fine covering it. It
Yeah.
was quite fun predicting the plays from the life total changes. It was like a good chess challenge.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got him down really low. Like the
Yeah.
aggression early game was great, and You get him.
We
You got Storm Striders. You got the Heart of Ice off him really early. It was really, really